What's up, Red Sea? Thanks for joining me today on this Q&A with TCR Live. Today, I just want to have a conversation with you. I want to ask you some questions. You can ask me some questions. We're just going to have a nice little Cardinals chat today. Nothing kind of too formal. Looking back at, the preseason game that we just had against the Cowboys, looking ahead to the one against Kansas City. Again, this is just a chance for us who are all excited about the Cardinals right now, and maybe have some things we're concerned about, some things we want to think about, we want to talk about. We're just going to come together and have a kind of our little kind of counseling session together, so to speak. So what I'd like to ask, just to get things going, is if you have a question you'd like to ask me, put it in the chat. Put a nice big letter Q in front of it so I can make it a little easier for me to know, if it's a question. And then I've got some questions I'll put up on the banner for you. So this can be kind of a two-way conversation, right? Not just me talking at you, but, me asking you questions, you asking me questions, back and forth. So, to get things kicked off, I'm going to put a question up. It's a very general question that I'm sure everyone has thoughts about, but what are your primary takeaways from the first preseason game? Is there something that stood out to you, something that really left an impression on you? So, please, put your thoughts on that in the chat. And if you have any questions for me, put them in there. I want to throw some shout outs to some of the folks that are here today. Really appreciate you all. Red Sea, hopefully he's still awake. He's on the East Coast like me, so I think it's a little late for him too. Mark Jackson, newly subscribed. I appreciate you joining us, man. We've got Lennon Wolf, as always, Mr. Reliable. Appreciate you being here. A aspiring Arizona Cardinals content creator, so keep going it, keep plugging away. Look forward to seeing your content over the years to come. Jean-Paul Edward de Dios, also another person who's always here. Really appreciate you and being here. And everyone, Supreme Goat, Tapatio Man, appreciate you all being here. And thanks for I mentioned the intro. Thanks. It's been a lot of fun learning how to do these intros and learning how to do the editing. And I'll let you know a little secret. I don't know if he's told you, but that new intro of Mike's y'all love, I made that for him. So I also did the intro for the fan and the professor. So it's been a lot of fun learning how to do that stuff. So thank you. Got some other folks that jumped in. We've got World Peace. We got Jordan P. Thank you all for being here. If I'm missing one, I apologize. So let's get to some of the questions. And please be sure to hit like. And if you're here, you're not subscribed, please subscribe. I imagine you probably all are if you're here, but hit that like button. That certainly helps. Let's see. So we had a question. I think Lennon asked about my prediction in terms of the record. So, so we went over that. I know during the fan and the professor episode a couple weeks ago, but I came out with a 10-7 record. So that's kind of my initial prediction. And I think that's probably the minimum record they're going to need to get into the playoffs. That they're going to have to do better than that. They're going to really have to take a step forward because there's some tough teams on the schedule. I think they can do it. I'm getting more and more optimistic about this offense with the more I'm seeing. So here's hoping, right? Let's see. So do we have any questions or thoughts? Tapatio Man. Okay. Thing I wasn't too pleased about was the offensive line. They couldn't defend the QBs. Yeah. The offensive line struggled. They did settle down a little bit later, but it wasn't great. Strevler being a mobile quarterback helped them out a little bit, but our centers, obviously aside from Hudson, who didn't play much, our backup centers really struggled. Joshua Miles, one of our backup tackles, struggled. Now again, these are backups, so here's hoping we don't have to call on them to play. But optimistically though, and Josh Jones played reasonably well, and I know John Paul was saying he's sold on him. So hopefully, the starters perform well, these young players and the backups perform better, and hopefully we don't have to call upon them. But yeah, that was a little bit rough. Mark Jackson's got a question. What do you think about Pew being protocols? I think it's going to go through the locker room. I mean, obviously, what I think is I hope that he I just read the article myself, and it looks like he did test positive. So obviously, I hope he recovers quickly and is well. And I know there's a lot of opinions about everything surrounding COVID, and I'm not going to get into all of that, but the empirical reality and fact right now is that cases are up again, and whatever you want to attribute that to. So I think we're gonna see unfortunately a lot of this. We're gonna see a lot of players, I feel like, going on that COVID protocol, and having depth on your roster is going to be really important this year. From an epidemiology perspective, the fact that the vaccine is out there and a lot more people are vaccinated hopefully means that people will one of the benefits of the vaccine is that the symptoms are less severe. So hopefully there'll be the mortality rates will be much lower, and hopefully infection rates lower. But if you look at just the curve, it's gone up. So I have a feeling we're going to see more of this with teams everywhere, and it's going to probably be a recurring thing. And that's one of the reasons that the league has maintained some of the more flexible rules when it comes to the COVID list, and being able to pull people off of that, not having to have and the IR. So unfortunately, my thoughts are beyond obviously hoping the best for his own health personally. My thoughts are probably not going to be the last time a starter ends up there. Hopefully it's the last time for Justin, but we're going to have to get used to that. That's probably our new reality, is players, every team having to here and there have to have a player out there. So let's see. Jack of all trades. Yeah, it's been fun learning how to do video editing and things like that. All right, so got it. If AJ Green is looking like his 2015 self, I saw that tweet, and let me tell you, I'll just say it right now. Lewis Riddick is one of my favorite folks in terms of analysis and stuff. I'm a huge fan. So if he says it, I pay attention to it. So would you guys say that we have the greatest wide receiver core ever? I will not say we have the greatest wide receiver core ever, but if AJ Green looks like 2015 AJ Green, Nuke Hopkins is Nuke Hopkins. And if Rondale Moore ends up being as good as we're hoping he is, and obviously they all stay healthy, and then your fourth receiver is Christian Kirk, I think by the end of this year, if that happens, I think it's realistic that this could be in the conversation for the best receiving core in the NFL. I'm not ready to say that yet because we need to see it happen. But listen, I'm very bullish on this receiving core after some of the reports out of camp, seeing Rondale Moore in action, with everything we're hearing from AJ Green. I think a lot of people are kind of selling them short. But at the same time, we have to see it, right? But yeah, I am, and I'm a homer, I guess, but I'm kind of excited by what I'm hearing and what we're seeing, right? So best ever, and I'm just not one to make those kinds of statements, but I think if that ends up happening, and Kyler, especially if Kyler takes another step forward, I think we could be in the conversation. Now, Tampa Bay has a really, really good receiving core, so that's probably going to be one of them we'd be competing with. But man, I could see them being in the conversation, right? Yeah, so let's see. Lennon, I would agree as well. We're not going to lose to the Cowboys. Cowboys are one of those teams I don't like, but usually I don't like. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, I have two favorite teams, right? The Cardinals and whoever's playing the Cowboys. And when the Cardinals are playing the Cowboys, that is the best thing ever, right? Do you think Kyler will do what Colt did and play under center more often? So, like, if he takes like just a couple snaps under center, it's going to be more often than he did last year, right? Because I think he took all of his snaps out of the shotgun, if not all, close to him. But to get to your question, and I think what you're really asking is, do I think Coach Kingsbury is going to have Murray under center, more than nothing this year, or with some frequency this year? And I do think so. I think he's going to mix it up a little bit. I still think they're going to be primarily out of the shotgun. But some of those jet sweeps during the game with Rondale Moore were out with him under center. And I think he's going to do it more often as part of his attempt to expand the game, the playbook, and as in an attempt to get players like Rondale Moore the ball more. And maybe just in general, looking at things like, hey, I need to do something different than I did last year. So the short answer is I think we're going to see it a little bit, but not a lot. And that's more than we saw last year, right? Streveler seemed good, but the need to throw two, sure, he scrambles good, but I think McCoy can be the better backup because, I think McCoy's the backup for sure. I think he's a guy who can step in and be competent. And we talked about this on the show I do with Mike. Streveler doesn't look like a quarterback throwing the ball. There's not much under. I mean, it's line drive passes, not a lot under it. And he can run the ball, but like I've said this before, there are other athletes on this roster I'd rather see running the ball besides Chris Streveler, right? Rondale Moore, Kyler Murray. Chase Edmonds. So if he's just a gadget player, I just don't like keeping him on the roster to be a gadget player. I think we've got better gadget players on the roster if that's what you want. I am worried. Maybe worried is a strong word. If we try to cut him and see if we can get him on the practice squad, I'm now starting to wonder if someone won't pick him up. But I think at the same time, I think most teams do have their quarterbacks kind of set. So there's a chance we could get him through the practice squad. But for me personally, and I said this earlier this week when talking to Mike, I'm done with the Chris Streveler experiment from my perspective. I mean, he can run well. I'm not trying to, hate on him. But I want a more conventional quarterback as a backup quarterback. And I think there's just other players that I'd rather see carrying the ball. So for me, McCoy's the backup, and I don't feel like we need, Streveler and the rest. That's my opinion. What's my favorite team in Arizona Cardinals? We all know Suns. I am a diehard Suns fan. I'm from Arizona. I don't live there now because my career has brought me to Georgia. But I mean, I born in Arizona, lived in California, moved back to Arizona, lived there from 87 until 2008. And I was there for the Charles Barkley Suns. I was there for, I remember watching Kevin Johnson and Tom Chambers and Mark West. I've been there through the Nash era. I do the Cardinals content because I think I study football more than I do basketball. But I follow basketball, at least the Suns, and I know a little bit about it, and I definitely love the Suns a lot. It's Suns and Cardinals. I lived there when the Diamondbacks won the World Series. I describe it as a rooting interest in the Diamondbacks, but I really don't follow baseball anymore. It's kind of lost my attention. But Diamondbacks are the team I root for. You think Streveler should be a fullback or tight end? Yeah, I mean, that's one of these things we see, right? Quarterbacks who don't make it as quarterbacks trying to be tight ends. Some of them succeed, some of them don't. We saw Tebow didn't work out. But we've seen a couple work out, and does he have the skill set potentially? Could he do that? If the Cardinals are going to try to make that transition, I want to see that. I'd like to see that happen with him on the practice squad first, but that's my view. Fullback, I mean, yeah, not a lot of fullbacks used in this league. I guess you could say maybe that H-back combo fullback, kind of like, that move tight end combination. So I could see that. But I'm just not really, from my perspective, I'm not really interested in trying to make that happen as a fan or watch that happen as a fan. If he can do it, God bless him. But I want to see. I don't know. I think the Cardinals have enough really good players on their roster, and they should focus on getting those players the ball and not spend too much time tinkering around with the gadget player. That's my opinion. But we'll see. Someday will you put me on here and do a live stream? Maybe someday, yeah, maybe. I know Mike likes to do the phone lines. That's not really my thing, but maybe I tell you keep plugging away, Lennon, and get some content going. And yeah, one of these days maybe we'll get you on here, do a live stream, and help get people to see some of your content. So yeah, I think I don't know. Yeah, the Titans have that. I probably missed where that was in response to. Okay, let's see. You think Anquan and Fitz was better than so you think Anquan Bolden and Fitz was better than AJ Green and Nuke Hopkins? I'm guessing that's what you're saying. I'm probably a little behind on the chat. That was a really great receiver duo. So hard to argue. I think I will say when we had Fitz to Anquan during their primes, right? So we don't have Green during his prime, even if he's at 2015 prime. So I think you could make a strong argument about that, right? How do I feel about our strong safety position, Jalen Thompson, Banjo, Wiggins? I really like Jalen Thompson if he can stay healthy, and that's the big question. But he's graded reasonably well. I think he's a good player. Banjo has played well when they've called upon him. I think Wiggins is a special team stud in the making, and I think he's shown enough that he could be a good safety. And so I like the depth there. I don't think, obviously it's not a star, like our Buda, like we have in Buda Baker. But in general, taking our safety room as a whole, assuming we keep like 5 of those guys, maybe 6, be the 2 Thompsons, some combination of the 2 Thompsons, Banjo, Wiggins, maybe Sean Williams, Buda, Charles Washington. I feel okay about that. Obviously Buda's a star. I think that is that's good depth as a safety room. It might not be the top safety room in the NFL. Buda's up there. Jalen's decent, but he needs to show some things. But I feel comfortable with the position that one of those guys is going to play reasonably well and the combination of them. So I feel okay about that. Did Wiggins even play? Yes, he did play against Dallas. He played really well in special teams. In fact, in my video recapping that I showed and highlighted a couple of his plays in terms of special teams, he actually played 29 total snaps in that game, 17 coverage, 11 run defense, 1 pass rush. So he played quite a few, had a PFF grade of 65.6, which isn't bad. So, that's that's about as many as most of the younger players had. A lot of players were in the 20s. So he did play. You didn't see him make big plays as safety, but if you look closer, and again, I highlighted those 2 plays, he had 2 really nice special teams tackles as gunner. So I think Wiggins is going to be a stud on special teams, and I think he has a potential to eventually become a guy that plays on the field, as a safety. And who knows? He's got the physical tools to be a starter. We'll see if he can do that, right? Okay. Oh, you're saying Nasterville can't do that. Can't do that via tight ends. Okay, so you don't think he can be one. Okay. Yep. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to get through the comments here. So yeah, they were trying to get Strebler as blocking on special teams during camp, and when you got your backup quarterback that you're trying to get him some snaps on special teams, that to me shows that you're not sold on him as your number 2 quarterback, and you're trying to justify keeping him on the roster, right? You're trying to, and I did a podcast with Walter Mitchell a few weeks ago, which was a great time. We're gonna revisit that sometime in the next week or 2, going over the roster. And when you go position group by position group, and you look at all the tough decisions they're going to have to make. There, if you keep every player you keep is another player you can't keep, right? And there are tough decisions in that safety room and cornerback room and with the linebackers and running back. So it's like if you keep Strevler, either you're having to keep just 2 tight ends, which are that's maybe a place where we can go kind of cut the corners a little bit because we don't have a lot of great players there, or maybe you only keep 3 running backs, right? And Jonathan Ward doesn't make the team, or maybe you only get to keep 5 cornerbacks. So if you're keeping Strevler on the roster, it's at the expense, obviously, of another player. It's what they like to call a zero-sum game. So the fact that we're trying him on special teams shows that they're trying to justify keeping him on the roster. And I think I've made my opinion clear that God bless him, but I think we keep 2 quarterbacks and we just make sure we have one on this practice squad. Okay, maybe, right? I think if Larry's coming back, I think he's going to come back by the regular season, but he'll probably come back late in the preseason. But we'll see, right? I don't think he's coming back, but I could easily be wrong on that, right? Cards have a lot of depth in the secondary. Who do you think will make the cut for the cornerbacks and safeties? Okay, great question, Simon. Thank you. So these are the 2 toughest positions because there's so many players I like. Cornerbacks, I think there are 4 players that are absolute locks, barring injury. Malcolm Butler, Byron Murphy, Robert Alford, and Marco Wilson. And I do think they're going to keep a 5th cornerback. Over the last 2 seasons, they've only kept 4, but I think they're going to keep a 5th. And I think they're keeping Tay Gowan. I think he didn't have as good of a game as Marco Wilson. He didn't grade as well. His grade was about 50, but he looked decent. He was in the right spots. He didn't look confused, and he hasn't played for a year. And I think he showed enough that if they try to cut him and get into the practice squad, someone's picking him up. So if they want him as part of the organization, Tay Gowan's going to have to be on the 53, and I think he's going to make the 53-man roster. I think Darqueze Dennard's going to be the man out. I like Darqueze Dennard. He's graded well over his career. He can play outside the slot. He was a former first-round pick. He's a decent player. He's definitely a good player to have in your team. But they didn't really play him much. In fact, I don't know if he got many snaps at all. So I'll tell you, and this is just something I was thinking about today. I wonder if they're not really going to, and we'll see if they play him. I wonder if they're just not really playing Darqueze Dennard, and that what they're planning to do is go ahead and cut him and try to get him on that practice squad. And the rules for the practice squad have changed. They changed them last year because of the COVID situation, and they're continuing those rules. So they've expanded that beyond the normal number of players, and they are allowing you. It used to be you had to have players who hadn't played more than a certain number of seasons or whatever in the NFL. Now they can have, you can have like a certain number of veterans, and you can protect a certain number of players that can't be poached. They could keep him as a veteran. So I have a feeling they're going to end up cutting Darqueze Dennard and try to see if they can keep him on that practice squad, but he might go somewhere else. He might opt to go somewhere else. As far as safeties, the question is, are they going to keep, 5 or 6? I think obviously Buddha's a lock. Jalen Thompson to me is a lock. I think Banjo is a guy they're going to keep. And then the way I look at it is there are these 2 competitions, in my opinion, that I think are going on in safeties. I think Deontay Thompson and Sean Williams are competing for a spot. Those are both guys that you can play as safety. They're guys who are not exclusive, or they're guys who can play for you and do special teams. I think they do both. They both have played a number of snaps at safety and at special teams. And I think those 2 guys are competing for one spot. And then I think Charles Washington and James Wiggins are competing for a spot. And that spot is as a guy who is a primarily special teams player who might see the field a little bit at safety. So if you go with that rationale, I've got 3 guys, right? Buddha, Baker, Jalen Thompson, and Banjo that I think are locks. And then 2 more guys, whoever wins each of those competitions. That's if they keep 5, right? Now, If they keep 6, then maybe that changes, the calculus there. But I think that I think Wiggins is going to make the roster. I think they like him as a gunner. He looked good. I don't think if they cut him and try to get him to the practice squad, someone's picking him up. So I think Wiggins is probably going to be there. And then I think I could see them keeping Washington because he was so good on special teams. And then I think either Deontay Thompson or I think one of those two guys isn't making the roster, Sean Williams or Deontay Thompson. And I go back and forth on which one I think. If I had to pick, I would say they keep Deontay Thompson and they try to get Sean Wiggins on the practice squad as one of those veterans. That's if you kind of press me on it, said you've got to pick, then I'm going to say, okay, Buddha, Jalen, Deontay, Banjo, Wiggins, Charles Washington, and then they're going to try to keep Sean Williams on the practice squad. That's how I think it's going to play out as of today, right? So let's see. I know I kind of get backed up, but that's great. Good questions. Anyone ready to see Jamal fail in coverage Seattle for the next few years? Well, yeah, that their cast says, yeah. Hey, listen, I hope that happens, right? As a division rival, I will say, and I saw that Johnny Venerable posted, that PFF coverage grade, which was really bad. And I don't know if you saw, I actually replied to that saying that, last year Adams graded poorly across the board. He actually, the 2 years prior to that, graded really well in coverage. But we'll see. I mean, yeah. So we'll see. Basketball X and O's are less complicated. Best thing about D-backs this year is no here. Okay, but yeah, D-backs have been bad. I do know that. Yeah, basketball it's less complicated, and I know a little bit about it. Don't get me wrong, but I haven't. I think if I talk Suns, I could hold my own. But I dig in a little more with football. So, let's see. So just going through here to see. I haven't seen the flight plan trailer, but I'm going to check that out. Chase, thanks for joining us. PSC Treepack. Larry coming back. No, I don't think so. I think he's retiring, but we'll see, right? Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, absolutely. And you're probably I know I'm really behind that chat. That's probably when I was talking about this earlier. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's going to be a really big deal this year. Yes, thank you, Lennon. Appreciate that. Please like and subscribe. All right, let's see. So Red Sea thinks the corners are going to be Butler, Byron, Denard, Marco Tay. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you don't think Alford's making it. Okay. You think Denard over Alford. I think it's one or the other. I do think those two are kind of a pivot point. Now, remember, you in a previous conversation, chat, I think with me and Mike in one of our shows, I think you said you thought they were cheap in 4. So it sounds like you've moved up to 5. Buddha, Jalen, Wiggins, Banjo, Williams, Deontay. Okay. What is up, Hayo Time? Thanks for joining. How's my day? Is going great. Just got home from coaching soccer. Awesome. My 6-year-old son is going to be doing soccer for the first time. He did a soccer camp this summer. But yeah, today is first day of classes. So, for those of you who don't know, for my day job, I teach at a university. And so, I haven't been in a classroom since March 13th of 2020. So it was really kind of neat and weird to be back in the classroom. But today was the first day. So, okay, who's one player have surprised me this offseason? Which Cardinals player? So I mentioned this in the conversation with Mike, the AZ sports fan. One player that surprised me, because I didn't expect him to play this well now. I thought he'd be a little more raw, is Marco Wilson. I mean, if you've seen my video on him that I did after they drafted him, the physical tools are off the chart. But the decision making there were some questions about that. I expected him to come in a lot more raw and struggle, but man, he looked good. Right. So that's one player who I would say surprised me. Zaven Collins, maybe surprised me a little bit. I think he's going to be good, but as well as he played early on, that probably surprised me a little bit. And I'll say this one player who's I think really surprised me also from the reports I'm hearing is Robert Alford. The reports coming out of camp is that he's been really good. And he hasn't played in 2 years. I mean, he was a decent player for Atlanta, and then he signed here and hasn't played because of injuries. And man, I just thought he'd be really rusty after 2 years of not playing. And again, he didn't play really much in the game, maybe just 1 or 2 snaps, I think. So, he didn't play a lot, but reports out of camp, he played 4 snaps. Reports out of camp are that he's looking good. So that could be one that's surprising me. Super Bowl coming, Lennon. Okay. And then John Paul, do you think Rhonda would be covered by Honey Badger this Friday? I want to see Isaiah cover Kelsey. If they play their starters long enough and they're both on the field at the same time, I think that makes a lot of sense in terms of someone to cover him. Otherwise, I could see Jarius Sneed. He's a guy that was a rookie last year who played pretty well. But yeah, I mean, I think Honey Badger makes a lot of sense, right? Really, I mean, he's a guy who's good in the slot and is a versatile player, kind of like Buddha. And I mean, we all know about Honey Badger. We watched him here, so I think that's a good call if they're on the field together. Jean Paul, yeah. Let's see. All right. I think Marco Wilson was mic'd up. I'll check that out. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for suggesting. Yeah. Hey, I know he might be gone at this point, but thanks, Red Sea, for popping in. I really appreciate that. Deontay played a lot of snaps. They might be undecided in his future. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my thoughts. I mean, he's a decent player, but he hasn't graded, exceptionally well. He's graded in the 650s, 6Cs for PFF. And yeah, when you got a guy who's been on the roster for a couple of years and he's playing a lot of snaps, I think you got to pay attention to that, right? So I think you're right on, John Paul. And like I said, I think in the safety room, if there's one competition that I think is definitely ongoing, it's Sean Williams and Deontay Thompson. And if I had to place a bet, I wouldn't bet that they both make the roster. Again, they could prove me wrong, right? Yeah, I'd like to see more of Marco Wilson, right? He looked really good. Are there any players of note that we can claim off waivers for agency if interested fits for you? I haven't looked at that's an interesting question. I haven't looked at that. So I don't have a good answer for that yet, and we don't know who's going to be cut. I think there are 2 positions where I think the Cardinals need to look at the waiver wire. Okay, so I don't have a specific answer, but I will tell you 2 positions that, in my opinion, Steve Keim needs to be scouring the waiver wire and churning this roster at that position, and that is tight end. We need, I know Max Williams had that fumble, but Max Williams is going to be fine. But that number 2 tight end / number 3 tight end, if there is a good veteran or even good young player who comes available when teams start making cuts, I would watch for the Cardinals to pick someone up, and I think that's a position they need to. And I also am now worried about that backup center position. Now we'll see. Michael Manet looked really bad. He is a rookie. We'll see. Maybe he looks better this next game. But, their backup centers are Michael Manet and Max Garcia. And Max Garcia is not really a center by trade. He's more of a guard, and they've been getting him some snaps there. So, yeah, I'd like to see. I think Michael Manet is much more likely now to end up on the practice squad, and I don't think they're going to have a hard time getting him through waivers to get him there. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if they picked up some sort of journeyman, kind of guard center player who just can be there as depth. So, yeah. What do you think of Rondale Moore for fantasy football leagues? I think he is a guy that I am drafting late in every fantasy football league I can. I drafted him in one league already, and he seems to be going late. I love the potential. He's probably not going to be, don't see him being a wide receiver 1 or 2, but I see him being a really great option for flex because they're going to run the ball with him. He's going to get those, he's going to get the ball. They're going to throw to him. They're going to do jet sweeps. He's going to run it. I think he's definitely worth a late round flyer for sure. So, and like I said, I'm grabbing. What is up, CJ Ruth? Hey man, I appreciate you being here. It was great popping into your video earlier today. I couldn't stay for all of it, but I stuck on for a little bit. And if you guys aren't following CG Ruthless Sports, he's a 49ers content creator. So, you got to get past that, but division rival. But, again, he does the NFC West Roundtable with Mike, the AZ Sports fan. CG is a good dude. He's been, we did a collab. He interviewed me on his channel. He's been really supportive. So, go give him a subscription or subscribe if you haven't. I know 49ers, but just consider it, a little bit of intel, right, on the enemy, right? But no, give him give him a subscription. He's a good dude. For sure. So thanks for being here, man. Let's see. Yeah, and he interviewed Mike Rumpf, I think it is, former defensive back for 49ers, and I caught some of that. And that was cool. So I'm just trying to get caught up on the chat, making sure I'm trying to catch any questions. I asked them a few questions. Yep. Let's see. Do you think we could trade Hicks and a fourth for Hayden Hurst? Ooh, that's an interesting one. So whenever you ask about a trade, both it takes two partners to dance. I don't think teams are going to trade for Hicks. I think maybe and a fourth. That's interesting. They traded. I think it was a second round pick for him. With obviously with Pitts, Hayden Hurst he's like Max Williams, a former Raven tight end. Atlanta traded for him. He was their tight end, and then now they drafted the best tight end anyone's seen ever, arguably coming out of the draft. I'm not sure they want to let him go though. I think they might like having that depth, especially rookie tight ends. Now Pitts may just blow all this out of the water, but tight ends more than almost maybe any other positions, certainly on offense, just take time to develop. Like rookie tight ends don't come out, playing well typically. If you look up the best seasons for rookie tight ends ever in the history of football, you'll see it's not the numbers aren't that impressive. Which I'll give you, since we were talking fantasy football earlier, I'm gonna give you a little fantasy tip. When I'm looking for a tight end, unless I draft one of those, top tight ends early on, but if I'm going later, I always look for that guy who was a first or second rounder 2 years ago, right? A guy who was drafted a couple years ago, didn't, have a great first season, but is probably going to be starting, that kind of player. So that's just my kind of one of the ways I like to approach it. But I'd love to get, Hayden Hurst. I think if we could get him for a reasonable trade offer, I'd be all for it. I think that'd be a great kind of player to add. I just don't think that. I don't know that they'd be interested in Hicks. They've got a lot of young players they're trying to develop there. They drafted a lot of young players. Maybe I'm wrong. If we could get him without giving up too much, I'd love to do that. I just don't know if you're going to get that pick, right? Cliff's play calling is concerning to me. I feel like he's forced college concepts instead of adapting more to the NFL. That's been one of the critiques of him. I will say though, listen, I'm probably a little more of a Cliff Kingsbury apologist than some people are. I don't think he's as bad as people think he is. He still has some things he needs to work on. But he did adapt and he did change. Like if I was listening to it, I think it was something on Pro Football Focus or somewhere, and they were talking about his first season. Early in that season, he was using 4 wide receiver sets like at this ridiculous rate. But as time went on over the season, he used them a little bit less. He still used them more than, called 4 receiver sets more than anyone else in the league, but he shifted more to 3 wide receiver sets, which is a little closer to more of a traditional NFL. So he is adapting, just maybe not as, maybe not to the degree some people would like. Certainly the results, we need to see more results, but I think that he's adapting more than some people realize. But, what is our main rival for the Arizona Cardinals? Do you know? I mean, I think that this is a great question. So I'm going to be completely honest. I think in the NFC West, I think the other teams in the NFC West, none of them think of the Cardinals as their top rival. And I think, and that's part because we've been the 4th place team, 3rd place team most years. And, we're the least accomplished. I know San Francisco record wise, they've had a lot of losing seasons recently. So, but they're still nationally, viewed better. So but from our perspective, I feel like we've had more really good games against Seattle, and they are the team that has more consistently won the division. So I think they're more the rival because we've gone into their home and won games. We've had those overtime wins, and they're the team that's won the division more than the other teams recently. So I think we've been gunning for them more. The Rams, we haven't beat them since McVay's been the coach. So it's hard to be a rival with a team that, to be quite frank, has had our number, right? So that's my view, but you all might feel differently. I mentioned this earlier, but I'll respond. Yeah, Richard, I think 10 wins. I think 10 wins is the number I'm picking, but obviously I'd love to see more, right? How do I feel about pass rush as is? Worst case scenario, Jones hold out, Gardick isn't ready. So let me start by saying I don't think Jones is holding out. I think Jones has made his peace with the situation. I think he's going to play out the year, and he's going to probably, if they might still have a chance to sign him. They might try to, franchise tag him. He won't be happy about that. He might hold out next year if they do that, but there's a good chance he could move on. But I think he's made his peace and decided he's playing this season. So I don't think that's going to happen. And Gardick may or may not be ready. But back to your question, right? How do I feel about the pass rush? I feel pretty good about it. I think Jones, again, he's not holding out. He's healthy. Marcus Golden is a solid pass rusher. He's had a couple double-digit sack seasons. If he can stay healthy is often the question. But, and then you've got, Devon Kennard, who's your 3rd pass rusher right now. And he's a decent player. He's not a star, but he's decent. He struggled last year, but he's been a guy who gets 7 or 9 sacks. And then when Gardick's healthy, right, and then you've got Victor Dimukeje, the rookie, who we'll see what he can do. And then J.J. Watt is part of that pass rush, even though he's more of a defensive interior. I think our pass rush is amongst the best in the league, and if one of our key pass rushers goes down to injury, God forbid, some like Chandler Jones or J.J. Watt, obviously knock on wood, hope that doesn't happen. I still think even without one of those players, we've got a decent pass rush. And part of that is predicated on the fact that Vance Joseph is really good at dialing up pass rush. I think our pass rush is going to be fine. I really do. I'm more concerned about the defensive interior, if anything. Give Cliff a chance. 3rd year, he's adapting. I gotta say, and that's where I'm at. And I know, I get it. Fans are really not have a lot of patience with him, and a lot of that has to do with the way last season ended. But he took a team that had the 1st overall pick, got a little bit of an improvement to 5 wins, and then 8 wins, and this season's going to matter, right? He needs at least, I think he needs, if they need to get 9 or 10 wins for me to continue to feel patient with him, right? I think tight ends will be impactful, but not in a way we think. They will be asked to block more since Cliff likes to do screens. They're impactful. Yeah, absolutely. I think, Dan Arnold was a nice receiving tight end option. He moved on. Maybe we should have signed him. But, again, when you have a tight end, tight ends are either going to line up as an inline tight end, right? They have a different lineup on the line with 2 or 3 point stance, or they line up as a slot receiver. Dan Arnold wasn't really, the blocker that Max Williams is, and we've kept Max Williams as arguably one of the best blocking tight ends in the league. So we've still got a really good blocking tight end. But if you're talking about having that tight end who's lining up occasionally as a slot receiver, well, we've got depth at receiver. So I'm not as worried about tight ends, and I don't think they're as integral to our passing game as they are for some other teams. But I agree with the stuff we're going to do with Rondale Moore, that blocking is going to matter. But we've got a really good blocking tight end, and if we can get a second one, or if Darrell Daniels or someone else can do a decent job blocking for us, that I think we'll be okay there. Do you actually feel Cliff or Keimer on the hot seat as media speculating? No, I don't think their seats are as hot as people think. And I talked about this before. And some of you, if you watch a lot of interviews with on like some of the, and I still watch some of the and listen to some of the interviews on some of the local, like Doug and Wolf and guys like that. And I listened to an interview with Michael Bidwell a few years back, and he was talking about the hiring of Cliff Kingsbury. And what he was talking, they asked him about that, and they said, well, why didn't you hire a coach with more experience and try to bring Kingsbury in as like an offensive coordinator, right? Why did you hire him as a head coach? And I'm going to paraphrase, but what Michael Bidwell said was this: he's like, listen, the way it goes in the NFL is if you have a young coordinator who's really good that you hire, like if it's let's say you hire him as offensive coordinator and then you hired someone else as your head coach, like a veteran. Well, what often ends up happening is that offense coordinator develops for a few years, and then when he does really well, some other team comes in and hires him out from under you as their head coach, right? That's how Kyle Shanahan was hired, Sean McVay, right? They get hired away. And Michael Bidwell's take was, he said, listen, what we decided to do with Cliff Kingsbury is bypass that whole thing. We're going to hire him as our coach. We know he doesn't have he doesn't have any head coaching experience in the NFL. I know he was a head coach at Texas Tech, had a losing record, but he always had a good offense. I think that people kind of play that too much because, Texas Tech is and I lived in Texas. You're competing with A&M, University of Texas, even TCU for recruits, Oklahoma in that region. And their defenses were never good, but he always had a good offense. But anyway, Michael Bidwell's take was, we're going to hire him and we're going to take our lumps. He's going to need to develop, and we're going to be patient with him. We're going to surround him by veteran coaches. In a couple years, when he is finally at that point where another team would have hired him away from us if he were our offensive coordinator, we don't have to worry about that happening. He's going to develop within the franchise and develop into that guy. So with that all said, I'm of the opinion that the organization plans to be more patient with Kingsbury than a lot of people think they're going to be, and then most teams would be with other coaches, right? If they had hired him as an offensive coordinator who had 10 years in the NFL or 5 years in the NFL, he might be in more of a hot seat. That's my opinion. I could be wrong. Keim's had a rough go, right? With this. I think if the team really falls apart this year, I could see that happening. But I'll tell you, early returns on this draft class might save Keim's skin. It's looking good. We'll see. But Keim struggled in the draft, and that there's just no way around it. But he's done a good job with some trades and a few other picks. But I know that's a long-winded answer. I think Keim might be a little bit on the hot seat. I think they're gonna be a little more patient with Cliff than people think. But that's my opinion. Player prediction for the NFC when standings seedings. Oh boy, that's a lot to unpack. All right, so standings in the NFC. I think, I think obviously Tampa Bay is going to make the playoffs. I think 3 teams from the NFC West will make the playoffs. I think Seattle and the Rams are the most likely, and then the Cardinals and the 49ers are competing for that third. I think Green Bay will make the playoffs. I think only I think only one team from the NFC East, and if I had to pick, I actually would go with Washington. I know Dallas, everyone's on them. I just don't believe in their coach and their defense, and I mean their offense is legit, but I don't think New Orleans is going to make the playoffs. I'm just not confident about their offense right now. I think I wouldn't be shocked if we saw a second team out of the NFC North. I know Detroit's bad. Minnesota's kind of middling. Chicago might actually have some decent quarterback play though. So that's I don't know if I feel comfortable with seeding, but yeah. How do I think we'll do versus the run? I think that might be if Corey Peters stays healthy, I think we'll be okay. But Jordan Phillips, if he's starting, he's not great against the run. I think our linebackers, David Collins is going to help. I think we'll be okay. I don't think we'll be great. I think we'll be okay. Do I have any favorite? Yeah, a favorite non-Cardinals player? Yes. Aaron Rodgers. I think he is an outstanding. I know Brady is, the GOAT and he has the rings and all that. But to me, I think in terms of pure talent playing the position, Rodgers to me, until Mahomes came around, was the most gifted quarterback I'd seen. I'm a big fan of Aaron Rodgers. Hey, Chris, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Someone wants no, you can't have my money. Sorry, Chief. Do you think Cliff should hire an offensive coordinator and just manage the team? No, I think they brought him in to be an offensive head coach. They didn't bring him in because he is like this organizational guru. They brought him in to be I don't think he should step back and just, kind of manage the team. I think he should be involved in the play calling. Should he hire an offensive coordinator? Maybe. I don't feel like, how can I say this? It doesn't need, the title is less important to me than the role the person's playing. I do think he should have some people helping to lighten the load for him, whether it's an assistant head coach, whether it's a passing game coordinator and a running game coordinator, and they might already have some of those titles. I'm less concerned about the title, but maybe, listen, I'm all for if you can get some help to someone to help him, kind of lighten the load, great. But I think if you don't have him really heavily involved in the play calling, then that defeats the purpose of why we hired him in the first place, right? Oh no, give Sheev money or we can't watch sports anymore. Sheev Palpatine, oh no, I got 3 cents for you. Okay. Do I think the Cardinals could have a top 5 front 7? I think they could, yeah, if health, right? If the inside linebackers, play as well as we hope, the pass rushers are healthy, I think we could, yeah. All right, so that's a possibility, yeah. Lots of questions. Let me ask you all another question. We're getting closer now, so we've been going for a while, but I've got a couple questions I want to ask you all. How do you feel about the cornerbacks now? Because the cornerback room has given Cardinals fans a lot of consternation, a lot of gnashing of teeth over over the offseason. And it's one of those positions I think Cardinals fans were most worried about. I have my opinions, but I'd like to know how you all feel now, and maybe more specifically, how's your view change, right? So I'll throw that question while you all are kind of thinking about that and typing. I'll look at the questions. Chris, where do you think Kylie will land in terms of rushing yards at the end of the season? That's a great question. I think it's going to be somewhere around 600 yards. So let's, like last year, I think it was something like 700 yards. I'll just bring up their stats now. I think you want him to have to rush less. He had 819 yards last year. Is that right? Wow. Yeah, I think I think ideally you want him having to rush less because you want him to make some plays with his legs, but you want the passing game to be good enough that he doesn't need to make them as much. So I'd actually like to see his rushing yards go down, not to like 300 or 400, but I'd like to see him go down like 500 to 600, but be really efficient rushing yards. But with that, I want to see his passing yards. He had 3971. I want to see him pass for like 4,500 yards, right? And then rush for less. That's what I want to see. But yeah. All right. So Diego Perez, I'm still about the quarterbacks. Okay, so you're still not really sold. Okay. Let's see. Mark Jackson, I'm liking the corners. Love the way Wilson's played. Yeah. I was never as down on our cornerbacks, I think, as some people. I was a little more optimistic. And some of you maybe have seen, I did a video. I think even before Wilson started to look promising, they were already better than last year. Patrick Peterson in his prime was a better cornerback than anyone on our roster right now, but he played really bad, very poorly last year. Drake Kirkpatrick wasn't good this year. So if our cornerback room right now, if they play even like kind of average for the type of career they've had, like if Robert Alford and Malcolm Butler and Byron Murphy all have average seasons, what's average for them, we're still better than we were last year. But I'm getting a little more optimistic about it. John Paul, lots of depth, but top end talent is not elite. Smart though. VJ wants smart players. Yeah, I agree. I don't think we have we do not have, at least at present, the bona fide star. We don't have someone who's like elite, but good depth, smart players, veterans. Yeah, I feel pretty good about it. Yeah, better than we predicted, Chris. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, right? Not great, decent, but better than we felt like, right? Robbie or Rob, sorry if I get that wrong. Solid group of cornerbacks, in my opinion. Only question mark is my book is Alford and maintaining good health. Wilson will be a promising rookie. I think that outweighs the bad with him. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Alford, that's been his issue, right? Hopefully he'll be healthy, but yeah, I feel like it's good. Looking to see Byron Murphy progression. Yeah, they picked him top of the second round for a reason. He's been okay. He's been decent. He's decent in the slot. Really hope he takes that step forward, like people are saying, right? I like what they did. They brought in vets and short-term deals. I'm glad we moved on from Peterson. They're pricey. It's right. Yeah, I agree 100%. I was fine when they let Peterson go. Wish him the best, but he was going to be the amount he was going to demand in a salary, which just wasn't worth it. Robert Alford is a much better deal. A bargain graded out better than Peterson did last year. I like what they did. And I'm starting to feel, I wanted them to take someone in the first round at cornerback. And if I could go back in time, I might still have wanted it. I love Zaven Collins, but I'm starting to feel better about their approach. I like from what we've seen from Marco Wilson, right? Yeah. Not sure if this is normal, but quarterbacks do pass rush drills. Yeah. So Jean Paul went out to train camp and he very kindly shared some of his observations. I don't know if that's a common drill. Obviously, cornerbacks sometimes do rush the passer, right? But I don't know if that's a common drill. So what I'm hearing is some folks are still meh on the cornerbacks. Some folks feel better than they did before. They feel like it's solid, but not great. Okay, awesome. So let me ask you this then. What is your biggest concern currently about the Cardinals roster? What is the one thing that you have more concern about than anything else when you look at this roster as it stands right now, the way you feel right now? I have a few thoughts, but yeah. So let's see. Let me just see the comments. Prediction for how many team sacks this season. Oh, man. So I'm assuming you mean our defense, not how many times Kylie gets sacked, right? Let's see. So last season, they had I've got their stats in front of me. So let's look how many they had, right? They had a total of 48. And they got some out of some players like Hassan Reddick. I think that they're going to. I think the sacks are really hard to predict. I will say that, but with some of the players on this roster, I think it's going to be a little bit more than that. I mean, I don't. I'd say probably a good 5 to 10 more than that. That's my guess, but I don't know. We'll see, right? I think they'll be more effective pass rushing. I mean, they got 12 and a half sacks of Hassan Reddick, right? And 7 out of Dennis Gardick, but now they've got, JJ Watt and Chandler Jones back. I think it'll be more. I don't know how many, but yeah. Hey, Cliff, I think Cliff J, thanks for being here. Hope I'm not mispronouncing your name. Defensive line depth is your biggest concern. Phillips' health, Corey Peters' health, Zach out. Yeah, that interior defensive line is probably on the short list for me. I agree. Yeah, big concern. O-line depth. Yeah, Simon. For me, it's it's at the center position. I feel good about our depth at tackle because we've got obviously our starters, right? Humphreys and Beachum. Josh Jones was drafted as a tackle. He might end up being our right guard, but if he doesn't win the right guard position, he's a backup tackle for us. Justin Murray, who is also competing for that right guard position, started at right tackle for us a few years ago. So if he doesn't win the job, he can play tackle. Justin Pugh, I know, is on the COVID list right now, but he came into the league as a tackle. Joshua Miles, I feel pretty okay about our tackle depth. Guard depth, if we end up, if we have Murray, Jones, Brian Winters, Max Garcia, if we keep those guys, I feel good about that depth. Yeah, but the center, if Hudson doesn't play, I just don't feel good about anyone who's backing him up. So to me, but the offensive line depth concerns you. Because your Tapatio, Rodney Hudson's health or concern does what happened. And this might be kind of related to what I was just talking about. What happens if he doesn't stay healthy? Mark Jackson, we have a bunch of players that are always hurt. Yeah, depth's going to have to be strong. You do worry about that, right? Everyone's talked about the older players we've signed, and certainly that's one of the things that comes with it, right? The risk of injury. AJ Green's had injury problems. JJ Watt, a lot of these, Robert Alford. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But center position primarily. Yep, John Paul, Lennon, Warwick, Chandler Jones, JJ Watt. Hopefully they don't get injured. Yeah. Yep. So injury with those players. We have someone, Howie Dewey, who is not a Kyler believer, I guess. And more is your concern with Kyler? You just aren't sold on him? Is it him staying healthy? Is there something specifically about Kyler, or are you just kind of trolling us Cardinal fans? But are you not sold on him, or is there something about him specifically that you're concerned with? And I've got one more question I'll pose to everyone. And then we'll kind of take your comments, and we'll probably not go a whole lot long. We've been over an hour, which, boy, time flies. But what do you most want to see in the Kansas City game? Is there a player? Is there a matchup? Is there just in general something you want to see the Cardinals, something you want to see out of the Cardinals, right? So what do you want to most see out of that Kansas City game? All right, so let me see. Chris has a comment. Biggest concern is that all the names we have will not play to potential. Unfortunately, Cardinals have a history of getting players that are at the end of the line. Okay. Yeah, that's fair, right? Based on the track record, all these players, we're hearing good things about them out of camp, but we got to see it on Sundays, right? Yeah. He was hurt second half of the season. He was in the MVP discussion before that, and we were good. I mean, Kyler played really well, and then he got banged up and struggled. So yeah, if he can stay healthy, I'm optimistic. That's always the F, right? Zaven Collins playing well enough and Isaiah improving. Listen, we are putting a lot of faith in some very young players in that position group, right? And if both of your middle linebackers are young, right, and a rookie and a second year player, that's arguably a reason to pay attention to that. That gives you pause. In a perfect world, maybe, and you'd have one veteran and a younger player, but they're both immensely talented. So here's hoping that they play up to that. Zaven looked really good, but it was just preseason, so no, I think that's fair. You want to see no one get hurt in the Kansas City game. Amen, Mark. That's if you tuned into the show with me and Mike, early this on Monday, my position was keep the vets out, keep them, put them behind glass and keep them safe, and then let the young players play some more. I do want to see I would like to see Zaven Collins and Isaiah Simmons get more snaps, because those guys just need as many snaps as they can get, in my view, just to help them be ready to go. But I want to see him come out of that game healthy, for sure. I'm with you there. JJ Watt too, because he's a good run stopper. We kind of struggle runners. Yeah, so we got to need him to be healthy, right? For sure. Yeah. So we've been going an hour and 6 minutes. Like I said, it flew by from my perspective. Hopefully it wasn't a slow grind for you all. But does anyone have any last questions or comments, or, we had that question, what you wanted to see out of the Kansas City game? Any last questions or comments before we kind of wrap it up? Let's see. Simon, I'm looking forward to how they defend Kelsey Hill, as is everyone. I think Kylie might actually start, so looking forward to see him, if that's true. Yeah, I heard that he's going to get some snaps. And, Kansas City played their starters a little bit. We'll see how much they start them, play them. Yeah, I mean, listen, and I think we talked about, again, we talked about this Monday. Man, I would love to see Marco Wilson go up against some of these starting receivers, see how he does against someone like Hill. And I know Jean-Paul's mentioned this a few times in comments, and a few other people probably mentioned this too. Would love to see how Isaiah Simmons does covering Kelsey, right? Because that's kind of one of those things we're supposed to be looking for from Simmons, right? That he can be a guy who can cover those elite tight ends. And I'd love to see how he holds up against Kelsey, and love to see how Wilson holds up against some of those, receivers for Kansas City. So that would be really great. How well do you think Dennis Gardick is going to play? So when he plays, and if you haven't seen, I did a whole video on Dennis Gardick, and I talk about this a little bit in that. So if you haven't checked it out, please do check it out. I think he's still going to be a situational pass rusher. But what I saw in the film, when I looked at all of his plays from last year, impressed me. I think I don't think if Chandler Jones and folks are healthy. Just want real quickly before I want to say, hey, Mark, thanks for being here. I really appreciate that. John Paul, it looks like you have to take off, or you're getting ready to head out. Thank you for being here. You guys made it a great stream by having all the comments and questions. I think Gardick is going to play well in as a situational pass rusher. But even when he's healthy, if Jones is healthy and we have Marcus Golden, don't be surprised if he doesn't get a ton of snaps, because there's a lot. It might be like last year, situational. I think he'll be effective, but if someone's injured, we'll see more of him. But I still think we're going to see him just on those, just on those passing downs. I should do an all-time best Cardinals team. So someone suggested that once before. Maybe I'll do something like that. I will say, I have to admit, my kind of focus or where I really feel most comfortable talking about the Cardinals is kind of from the time they've moved to Arizona on. I am not really a student of their older history as much. And really from the early to mid 90s. I think 93 was the first year I think that was the first year I watched the draft, 1993. But maybe one of these days I'll do kind of my all-time Arizona Cardinals team. So yeah. Okay, thanks for responding. I'm not sold on him the second half of the season. He didn't play well. We need to figure him out. Needs to read defense better. Has a ton of potential. We'd like to see more. Yeah, I think we'd like to see him take that step forward. Howie, I'm sold on him as the arm talent is good. I think he's still he struggled, but he did get banged up a little bit. So I think he needs to take a step forward. We need to see more from him. I am sold that he's that good. But if he doesn't continue to get better, if he's capped out, then I'd be a little worried, but I think he will. But that's fair, he's in he just finished his second year. So I think there's a lot of reason to hope that he'll get better. What's my next video about? I don't know yet. The way I approach videos is kind of like when something hits me, I'm like, yeah, this is something I want to explore. Kind of when I'm interested in something, I do a video like the Dennis Gardick video. Actually, I can tell you my next video is probably going to be a reaction to the Kansas City game. That's probably the most likely, unless I might do, I do those quick hits. That's, those things I do once in a while, but the next kind of full on video will probably be a reaction to that. But in terms of like my deeper dives on a topic, I'm not sure yet. We'll see. As an idea hits me and I get inspired, I'm like, hey, let's do this. Right. I want Rhonda to get 1,000 yards. I'd love to see that. I think I could see that happening in all purpose yards, like rushing and receiving. I don't think he's going to get 1,000 receiving yards. I hope he proves me wrong. It's just because, you've got Nuke takes so many targets, then AJ Green, and then, and I think Christian Kirk's going to be in the mix. So it's going to be hard to see that, but we'll see. Right. So yeah. Let's see. Not going to have Chris use them. Okay. Yeah, that's probably responding to that. The Cardinals got 2 Pro Bowl wide receivers in 2021. I'm going to say no. And I think just because I think there's so many good receivers, I do think they'll have 2 receivers who are really good, but yeah. Nobody donate from Chap should add that next stream. Love to support. I appreciate that, Matthew. Whereas very analytical fact based, something the Cardinals community doesn't really have. Thank you, Matthew. I appreciate it. I'll look into that. And I'll say so if you're familiar with the monetization process, you have to get 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours. I am like 400 and something watch hours away from the 4,000. So I'll tell you what, the best thing the one thing that would really help me is if get the word out, get people subscribing. And I need, people watching my videos. If there's old videos of mine that you haven't watched, go back and check them out. That would help me. But I'll look. I know Mike does that with AC Sports Fans. So I'll look into the super chats. And I appreciate that. Thank you. I do this because I love it. I have a career. But listen, if this helps supplement my income, or people just want to, that's the way they want to show that they appreciate the work I put in, I'm certainly not going to say no. So thank you. I'll look into that. Who do I think will win the NFC West? I think the Rams will, honestly. I think all 4 of these teams there's a rationale where you can argue that they could win it. Any one of these 4 teams could do it, but I think the Rams are the favorite. And then I think the Cardinals and the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks defense isn't that great. Their offense is good, but I think the Seahawks, and a lot of people are on the 49ers. I am not sold on their quarterback situation. I think Trey Lance is going to be really good, but he needs more time. Jimmy G, can he stay healthy? So I think it's the Rams. But man, obviously I'd love to see the Cardinals win the division, and I think they have a chance. Seahawks have a chance, but my pick would be the Rams. Top 100. Let's see. You have Chandler, Buddha, Murray, Diop, Hudson. I'll make the top 40. I don't. Okay, so Buddha for sure. I think Murray does. I think Nuke does. I think Hudson has a good chance. I actually don't think Chandler will because of his injury. I think he only played like 4.5, 5 games, didn't play well. If he's healthy, obviously he is a top 100 player, hands down. But I think Chandler, and maybe we'll see if I'm wrong. I don't think Chandler makes the list really just as a function of him not playing last year. It would be really cool if Cardinal Rule started making Suns content. Thanks, Destroyer. Maybe, I don't know. I love the Suns. We'll see. maybe. Yeah, you agreed. Don't see the foreign. Yeah, don't see them being as good. Yeah. Simon, heading out. Thank you. I really appreciate, and I appreciate all your comments. You've been great commenting on videos and stuff. So yeah, listen, unless anyone has any final comments or any parting remarks, I'll give you just a second to just kind of, but we're going to wrap it up in just a few, just a moment here. We'll do this again. I posted a comment on my community page to see if people, were interested, and people said, yeah, do this. And it's, it seems like there's been a great turnout and great comments. So I really appreciate that. So we'll do this again. And I'm probably going to do something when we get into the regular season. I will probably do something every week, maybe probably Wednesday. I think that's a good time so we can get, previewing the week before the Thursday game. So yeah, that list is a popularity contest. Yeah. Yeah. So he's on it. He didn't play. So maybe Jones does make it. Yeah. A lot of the analytics folks I've been seeing commenting like how this list really isn't that great. It's a popularity contest. It's interesting. It's something to talk about. Right. But yeah. Most complete team in the NFL. Yeah, no worries. I think the most complete team roster wise, probably Tampa Bay. They've got a good defense, good offense, good offensive line. I actually think the Rams aren't far behind. They're a pretty good roster. I don't think Mayfield's as good of a quarterback as some people think he is, but he's a good roster. They have a good roster. But I think Tampa Bay is probably the most complete roster. Yeah, thank you for being here, Chris. I appreciate that. KC that's an interesting one for a complete roster. I'm guessing that's your response to Chase's. They're a great team, but I actually don't think their roster is as complete as I could be right on the defensive side. And okay, this is going to maybe be a little controversial. I actually don't think their receiving core is as good as people think it is. I'm not saying it's bad. Tyreek Hill is the most dangerous, on single play receiver in the game. I think they have some decent players. DeMarcus Robinson's not bad. Mecole Hardman's good. But I think that their quarterback makes a lot of those receivers better. They put up good numbers, but somewhere else, I don't know that I think Tyreek Hill is the only one who'd be a star anywhere else. But that's controversial. But I know they're still a good team. Tampa, Tampa Bay is a really good team. Hey, Tapatio, thanks for being here, man. You've been one of the really dedicated folks, so thank you for being here. Parting comment: the donations I mentioned is more of an investment in the channel than something you come some. Okay, hey, fair enough, man. Yeah, no, listen, whatever it is, I appreciate the support. I will. I'll look at that, for sure. Listen, again, I appreciate all being here. Great. Thank you, Mark. Have a good night. I'll catch you. Thank you. All right, everyone. Well, we're going to end the broadcast. I thank you all for being here, and we will see you all next time. Peace.